رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحسن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم علمني ما ينفعني وانفعني بما علمتني وزدني علما وصل اللهم على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وبارك. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. So you're not in front of the camera? This is crazy. How does it feel?
It's pretty wild.
I know, right? It feels the same, basically. Just like chair movement, yeah. So, basically today, I think one of the things that we kind of talked about at the beginning was that we want to realign our intention. I know that we took a week off. I think we were all doing stuff.
2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks. You went for Houston last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
I probably shouldn't have said that.
Houston, Virginia.
Houston, Virginia, yes. But yeah, so alhamdulillah, we took the 2 weeks off. So I think it's a good time to realign and kind of come back to purpose. And one of the hadiths actually that Rayhan shared before that I think is important that we kind of share with everybody, that we're all kind of here and going through this process and learning with each other. Also at the same time, sharing the journey of learning itself and the struggles that come in this current day America. So as Muslims, we're, like we said before, we're looking at it through this lens of Islam, but we're also learning too, and inshallah Allah forgives us for our shortcomings and our mistakes. And we hope that we say the right things and the truth, and that we share kind of the things that we learn. I know that some of us are more interested in like history, writing, some of us are more interested in arts and other things. So it's nice to come share us just as like regular people coming and living life through Islam. So the hadith, I would like you to share it actually, if you can. That'd be nice. So
this is a hadith from Abu Hurairah that the Prophet ﷺ said, "The strong believer is more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, but there is goodness in both of them. Be eager for what benefits you, seek help from Allah, and do not be frustrated. If something befalls you, then do not say, 'If only I had done something else.' Rather say, 'Allah has decreed what He wills.' Verily the phrase, 'if only,' opens the way for the work of Satan." And so, essentially, what we want to highlight is that that a strong believer is more beloved to Allah than a weak believer. And so what we want to do is strengthen our own iman and strengthen our own levels of faith, and all of you.
And honestly, I didn't know that there was another part of the hadith. I thought it was only the strong believer is more beloved to Allah than the weak believer.
Yeah.
But to hear that, be eager for what benefits you. You may seek help from Allah and do not be frustrated. If something befalls you, then do not say, 'If only I had done something else.'" Man, that part was like, I didn't even say that, but that's really beneficial for me too. Taking that. Sometimes we get caught up in like the expected outcome rather than the expected intention.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good perspective. Alhamdulillah. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about, actually, you had two interesting topics.
Yes.
That we started the week out with, and he brought these two topics, and I thought it was really interesting. So yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the Dönmeh, which are a group of Turkish Jewish Muslim converts. And there's a long line of history that we can kind of get into or talk about, but I find it pretty interesting. Basically, it all starts with the Messiah. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism all have a concept of the Messiah, someone who's going to come near the end of time and will bring all of the true believers together and defeat evil, things like that. And so I was researching the Jewish concept of the Messiah. They have a Messiah, but they don't have a false Messiah. They don't have a Dajjal or an Antichrist. And so their idea of a Messiah is someone who will kind of be a king of the Jews, someone descended from David, Prophet Dawood. And over the years, they've kind of been misled into believing certain people were the Messiah, who, as it turns out, they lived normal lives, they eventually died, it wasn't the end of the world, we know that they weren't. And so there was a period of time in the late 17th century in Ottoman Greece where there was a Jewish rabbi named Shabbatai Tzvi, and he was a rabbi who was so beloved, and he kind of proclaimed himself to be the Messiah of the Jews in around 1648. And so this is kind of interesting because he had a huge amount of followers among the Holy Land, Europe, North Africa, a lot of the Ottoman lands. The Jews really believed that he was their guy. And, you know, whenever you have a Messiah with you, you believe that your people are, you know, this is the end of times. We've got to dispense with the government and everything that's shackling us, you know? And so the Ottoman ruler at the time, Mehmed IV, in 1666, he actually arrested the Jewish rabbi, and he told him, you know, we'll either kill you because of all of this trouble you and your followers are giving us, or you've got to convert to Islam. And so what he did was he converted to Islam publicly, and all of his followers converted as well. But history writes that they weren't very genuine in their conversion to Islam. They did it because they were coerced to. Whether Islamically we're okay that the Ottoman Khalifa did do that, you know, we don't know. That's a different conversation. But the fact is, they were Muslims in name, but they still practiced a lot of their Judaistic beliefs and practices. And they actually stayed within themselves. They didn't intermarry outside into other Muslims. And so they kind of stayed as a preserved line of people who the Ottomans called, or the Turks called, Dönmeh, which is the word for convert, but it actually has kind of a negative connotation. And so one of the interesting descendants of the Dönmeh people in the Ottoman Empire was actually a man named Mustafa Kemal, also known as Ataturk. And it's interesting because he was a secular man who kind of was born and rose to prominence in the right time and the right place where the Ottoman Empire was very weak, and he served as the secularizer of that land. And he disbanded the Khalifa, the Grand Mufti, and changed everything. I mean, even during his revolution with the Young Turks and with all this movement, they were so anti-Arab and anti-Muslim that they allowed people to still pray publicly and make the adhan at masajid publicly, but in Turkish. And so there are actually some recordings from the 1920s and 30s of people reciting the adhan in Turkish.
Wow.
It's just directly translated, but the melody's the same.
Wow.
And so it's interesting.
That's
I mean,
interesting.
you know,
even the word Ataturk, I think, means father of the Turks.
I believe so, yeah.
Let's look that up, actually.
And so, you know, we're not saying there's any conspiracy or anything. I think there are people who go a bit further in them connecting the dots with this. I just think that the story here is that the Jews have been, and all people who have a messianic religion and a messianic belief might fall into believing someone is the Messiah when they're really not. And the way that we treat them has to be also with temperance. We can't force them to become Muslim, to disband their beliefs because they were getting too prominent.
Right. That's one thing that, like, I was thinking about as you were saying, because you know, as Muslims, we firmly believe, right? Like Yasagazi said something really interesting, like our religion is perfect, but our history is not.
Yes.
And so that's an important perspective to bring into this, because people may hear forced conversion, but then if you truly know Islam, you know this to not be the case.
Yeah.
In Islam, especially Jews for a long time have lived in Jerusalem under Muslim rule, completely fine, completely open to practice their religion, you know? And, you know, it's interesting too, because the religion is also very balanced, you know? Because, for example, and something I found out really interesting recently, so Muslims, we pay zakat, fidya, and we pay sadaqah. And these are means of embedding the society, the people who are at the bottom. So I always, this never came to mind, but then someone asked me recently about jizya. So jizya is a tax given to people who are not Muslim living in Muslim-ruled lands. And they were like, oh, it's not fair, right? But then I started researching, I realized that the jizya in comparison to sadaqah, fidya, and fidya and zakat is equal to, if not less. On top of that, the perks you get from jizya is you don't have to serve in the army.
Yeah.
You don't have to serve in the army, and you're guaranteed protection from the Muslim state. If the Muslim state cannot protect you, then you get the jizya back. So much so that the Christians of Syria, when they were forced to pay their jizya, the Muslim state told them, we can't protect you, so they returned their money back. And they said, oh, we love for you to rule over us. Had it been the Romans, they would have taken our money and left us. So the reason I bring that up is because it's a very important point to bring up, because the whole forced conversion kind of like didn't sit with me right either, you know. But even as Muslims, like, we come back to the point that, you know, our religion is perfect, but it's just that our history may not follow suit. It's human. That's the right word for it.
Our religion is divine.
Yeah.
Our history is human.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So, but it's a very interesting perspective. I did not know that Ataturk came from this.
Those people, yeah.
So how you say it?
Dönmeh.
Dönmeh. So Dönmeh is the name given to someone who converts.
Yes, it's the word for convert, but my understanding is it has a negative connotation in itself.
It's a Turkish word, so the meaning means convert.
Oh, it's
right?
Turkish.
Just Turkish. Yeah.
But specifically, as we look right here, it's this Jewish sect from Greece under Ottoman rule. Which had its roots in Istanbul, Izmir. I don't know how to pronounce this, but
Edirne.
So I'm kind of confused now.
Edirne.
So they're a Jewish sect, but they converted, so they're not Jewish anymore. Jewish by ethnicity?
It might be Jewish by ethnicity.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting actually. What I learned was that at that time, you know, under the Ottoman Empire, there were Muslims, there were Jews, there were Christians. They all kind of coexisted. Obviously, the Muslims were the majority, but they actually wore sort of their own garb. Like, Muslims wore Muslim garb and Muslim robes. Jews wore specifically Jewish robes and Jewish garb. And so when this rabbi converted publicly in front of everyone, he literally physically took off his Jewish robe and put on a Muslim robe.
So the rabbi that we're talking about, Shabbatai, he was Jewish originally.
Yeah.
He gained a lot of followers around the Holy Land, Europe, and North Africa, but he was arrested by the Ottomans. And he was given the choice of conversion or death, but he accepted Islam. But him and his followers, they still continued Hebrew tradition and Jewish tradition.
Yeah.
Their Hebrew names.
Yeah.
So they're ethnically Jewish.
Yeah. Interesting. How did you come across this?
Well, I was listening to a prominent local scholars video series on Islam's predictions for the minor and major signs of the Day of Judgment. Yeah. Basically, the Prophet ﷺ made a lot of predictions for the future in general.
Yeah.
A lot of those lead to the Day of Judgment, but they are just signs of, just predictions that he made for his people. You know, speaking of the Ottoman Empire, one of the predictions he made is that a group of people from a land of backward people, who he specifically, I think, named the location or said something that makes it very clear that he was talking about Turks, would band together and become some of the strongest people in the world and would conquer the Arabs. And this is something that happened like 500-600 years after his death. He predicted it. It happened.
SubhanAllah. Another prediction that I think about is the prediction of people will compete to build higher and higher buildings.
Yeah, not just that. I realized, or I found out about that it was, the prediction is that people who were barefoot farmers, like who were just recently barefoot farmers, will be the ones who compete. And
compete in what?
In creating and building the tallest towers. And so when you look at the Gulf states and the princes and the kings who have been building, like the Burj Khalifa and things like that, they were poor 1 or 2 generations ago.
Wow.
They only got their money in the 30s, 40s, when oil became like a really big commodity. Before that, they were some of the poorest Arabs in the world.
Wow. Yeah. Can we bring up that hadith? If we could bring that up. Now that's actually crazy. Some of the predictions made by the Prophet ﷺ, and they're very like, sometimes you don't even realize they've happened until like you really start reflecting on it, and then you realize, oh, that's what he meant by that. Yeah. You know, and some of them are very like that. It's very, very interesting.
Like the Islamic scholars, like the Tabi'een and people from way a long time ago, they must have had a totally different idea and visualization of that prediction, and we see it completely different now.
Yeah, exactly. Who would have known that the Gulf states, or even just the buildings, would look like that? Like for them, I wonder what they thought, how tall buildings look like and how tall they got.
Skyscrapers weren't a thing at the time.
No, not at all. And even now, like, they're still competing on it. So
so this was a very long hadith about much of the other signs regarding the Day of Judgment. But this point right here is where he says the part.
And when you see barefoot, naked, destitute shepherds competing in constructing tall buildings. Sorry, yeah.
That's beautiful.
This is from Sunan ibn Majah. Sahih.
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking, like, so the Prophet ﷺ gave a lot of predictions throughout his life.
Yeah.
As a hadith, and they've been compiled and things like that. But there was actually a day where in the morning the Prophet ﷺ, we went over his routine, his morning routine. We know that he early in the morning would go and lead prayer for Fajr, and he would have a small chat with his followers after Fajr. And so there was one day where he, instead of sitting down by his followers after Fajr and speaking to them, he went up to the minbar and he gave them a khutbah that was all of the predictions, or at least a huge amount of the predictions of the future. And it was from Fajr time, he would be talking until Dhuhr time.
Wow.
And then they stopped to pray. And then he would talk again until Asr time. Just all of these predictions. And it might have been all the way until Isha, but I'm not sure.
Wow, that's like a good length of them. I don't think I've read all of them, honestly.
Yeah, there are a lot. Yeah,
they're really okay.
And because we only learn and we only really talk about some. Like, definitely among Muslim circles, the towers is very commonly talked about.
That's like an easy identifiable one.
Yeah, and then the major signs like Al-Mahdi and the Isa returning to the earth. The Mahdi.
For Dune 2 fans out there.
Oh, really? Is there a character named the Mahdi?
The movie Dune 2.
In Dune.
The story of Dune is heavily influenced by Islam.
Arab and Muslim culture, yeah.
I think this is before the Iraq War, the Gulf War. So this is
it was written in the
book
50s.
Was Algerian War. It was influenced by the Algerian Revolution.
Of course. Wow.
So
that must have been the 60s then.
So that movie constantly, they're always like the Mahdi.
Yeah, that when I watched that movie for the first time in theaters, I watched the first one with my uncle, I was like, this is like weirdly reminiscent. And then I found out afterwards, like,
man, wait till you watch the second movie, bro. It's
even more.
Is this what people think Muslims are and Arab people are?
The first one is like super slow. Super slow. I heard the book is like unreadable. You need to watch
the 1984 movie.
There's a movie?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I gotta watch. I love that book.
Oh really?
I do, yeah. It's like my favorite book. No, one of my favorite books, yeah.
Wait, you're surprised that there's a movie? There are 2 new ones.
I haven't seen that one.
Wait, you didn't know that there are 2 new ones? Mm-mm. You just thought it was a book series?
Are you talking about Dune?
No, 1984.
Oh, no. We're talking about Dune.
No, there was a Dune movie that came out in 1984.
Oh. I thought you meant 1984, the book. I love that book.
I just started to make my brother read that book.
Oh, really?
1984, yeah.
Orwellian Society. There's another one, Brave New World, that I want to read. But I kind of was like, wait until you read that one. I'm just, going through my phase right now, so... That's crazy. I thought you meant... I didn't know that No, I think I did hear about the Dune movie in 1984.
Yeah.
I think I might have.
It's... By David Lynch.
I
thought it was an attempt. He wasn't able to do it.
So Dune is really hard to adapt into one movie because the book is really big and there's multiple... It's a very dense book. Like, I tried reading it and I couldn't get through it. Also, I tried reading it after I watched the movie, and it's hard for me to read something after I've watched it.
I know what you mean.
But the book itself, even though it's different than the movie, it's really dense. Like, the names themselves are hard to pronounce. It's a very slow start in the book. It slowly builds up. And
I still don't get the plot. I feel like I was just watching beautiful things. I don't know.
I mean, Denis Villeneuve, his movies are like that. His movies are very slow, methodical.
And gorgeous.
One of my favorite directors of all time.
Yeah. Is it CGI?
He does a lot of miniature work.
Really?
Blade Runner 2049 was all miniatures.
Really?
With Weta Workshop, if I remember.
Okay, but how did they make the people little?
Wait, are you talking about the people?
Yeah, like the people. Like, you can't... Miniature, I'm assuming, like, you have, like, a set...
Miniatures, you can put CGI people. Like, for example... you know the shot in Blade Runner 2049 where he's Ryan Gosling's character is in his little car, police car, and he's heading toward the police station
in the city with all the big buildings.
That whole shot is all miniatures.
I see.
So they built it's like human levels, like a human-sized city.
Right.
And they automated the camera to just kind of go through.
Oh, wow.
But they enhanced it with CGI. So,
Yeah.
like, for example, the rain or the fog that they have in the EU, that's all CGI, that's all graphics. But the set itself was made. I'm pretty sure they did that with Dune, but a lot of Dune was shot on location in the desert. I think it was Abu Dhabi, if I remember correctly.
No.
May have been.
Or Dubai, I'm not sure.
That would be called Ru'b al-Khali, I believe, which means the empty quarter.
Well, empty quarter?
The empty quarter is the desert of UAE.
How empty is it? Like, how big is it? Sorry.
Pretty empty. It's pretty big.
This is a bad question.
It's 250,000 square miles.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a
How
lot.
many acres is that? Sorry, I only know acres.
I don't understand it in acres. 250, 123 square miles in acres. That is 8, and that's a lot of zeros.
I think that's like 80 million. Yeah.
No, that's more than a million.
You think so? Yeah, maybe.
800 million.
800 million. Oh, that's a lot. Okay.
But all this talks about Messiah is something that's very interesting because a few months ago we had the whole prophecy with the red cows. With
Yeah.
Israel and the coming of the end of times. And we know as Muslims this is something that's very important because we have the coming of Imam Mahdi and we have the coming of Isa alayhi salam and the coming of Day of Judgment. And as Muslims, it's our duty, we got to get ready for that. We have to know our history. We have to know what's going to come in the future because it's all laid out for us.
Yeah.
It's in the Quran, it's in the Hadith for us. So everything that's happening right now in the Middle East with the Ummah being so divided, this should be a cue for us. We got to get our act together. We got to increase our iman, and we just have to be ready. So.
Yeah, and that's one of our intentions with this podcast. Ibadallah, I mean, before anything, we want ourselves to be stronger and smarter. And inshallah, us doing research for this podcast and trying to find things to say will bring us to where we want to be personally.
Yeah, especially living in America, man, we're very hit with a ton of comfort and the opportunity to be
we
very
understand true hardship.
And we become very complacent here. So it's honestly it has its I would say negatives, but it also has its benefits too, because then you have the freedom to think, freedom to learn, freedom to speak. These are important aspects that a lot of people around the world don't get an opportunity to have.
Yeah, people who are struggling physically literally don't have the opportunity to think deeper than where's my next meal gonna be. Things like that. And alhamdulillah, we're blessed and we're able to really analyze and think and look back at what's happened and make our own decisions for what we want in our own lives.
And as Muslims living in such privilege, we have the opportunity to become the next torch bearers or leaders of Islam because we have so much privilege and resources that other Muslims in the world don't have. And we have to take advantage of that.
No, it's definitely a sense of responsibility because man, you look at the brothers in Palestine or even our brothers and sisters in the Uyghur Muslim brothers in East Turkmenistan, even Kashmiri brothers and sisters, some of them are not even allowed to practice Islam freely or openly, and on top of that, oppressed on the opposite side.
Some of these countries, if they see a Muslim walking outside, they get beheaded or they get killed in public. In India specifically, that was happening in Europe a few years ago.
Yeah, so it's definitely a sense of responsibility. It's nothing, some people are born with their hands full and some people are born with their hands empty. But it's not about what you were born with, but rather it's about being able to identify the people whose hands are empty and sharing, So that's literally what us living in America have. May Allah make it easy for us and make us strong, for Allah is our strength. I mean,
the beauty of all of this is we have one unifying factor, which is Islam.
Islam
is what connects everyone to each other, all Muslims with each other.
But then we also have a sense of responsibility here that's a little different too. Living in a non-Muslim country, sharing Islam is also on top of mind and top of list for us. Right? I remember I was there's certain ayat in Surah Baqarah. If you could pull it up, I think it's 155. I was reading them recently, but basically this kind of was a shocking factor for me. I think you might have to pull up the whole surah so that we can scroll through. Yeah, could you scroll through actually, because we need multiple ayats. I think it's around 155, but Oh man, Baqarah, scrolling through Baqarah is gonna be crazy. You're gonna be there for a while. Oh,
I'll start at like 145.
I think no one. It's around one after 155. It's
After
I think
155.
yeah. I think it's like it's after, definitely after 155. So, essentially, what I was trying to say was that, having given Islam is a gift, but it's also a sense of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about having the book and being able to just hold it within your hands and just like learning it by yourself all the day. Like, faith is not a pool of water. Faith is a running stream. Faith in motion. It's if faith is not being used through action, like if you learn all this knowledge and you just sit on it, it's like you're sitting, like the description is given, like a donkey with books on its back. Right. You just have this knowledge, but you're not applying it to anything. It doesn't benefit you or even the situation around you in any way.
Yeah.
There's even during the time of the Prophet, I'm not sure if this is a hadith or someone who lived during the time of the Prophet. The Prophet told us there was a town where everyone committed sin, but there was one true believer in that town. And he kind of isolated himself and he lived by himself. And the Prophet had said that he was being punished because he never tried to guide the other people in the town that were disbelieving.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and it's actually ayah number 159. I just saw it on it. Yeah. So it says, I'll read the Arabic too, but Innal A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir
the ayah again one more time, and then.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say about this ayah was essentially like living in America, we have a different sense of responsibility living in a non-Muslim world, right? We can even look at our UK brothers. Our UK brothers have been living in the West for longer than we have, generations more than us, and they've kind of come to this conclusion before we have. You hear Speaker's Corner, but also you hear about a lot of dawah that comes from that area too. The reason is because they understand there's a sense of responsibility living in a non-Muslim state, that we're here for a reason, and one of the reasons is to spread the message of Islam and not to withhold it to ourselves, right? And so it reminded me of this ayah in Surah Baqarah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الذين يكتمون ما أنزل من البينات والهدى من بعد ما بيناه للناس في الكتاب أولئك يلعنهم الله ويلعنهم اللاعنون. So those who hide the clear proofs and guidance that we revealed after we made it clear for humanity in the book will be condemned by Allah and all those who condemn. So essentially we're the bearers, and I believe this is specifically speaking about the Jewish people, but in the same sense, like we're also compared to the Jewish people and the Christian people because we're supposed to maintain that balance, right? And so we look at these nations that came before us, and one of the things they used to do is hide the message from other people, and that gave them a sense of privilege or false sense of privilege over others. But it's not. It's a sense of responsibility, a heavy burden that we actually have to take upon ourselves and share this message to other people.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that we should keep as a reminder for us and for everyone is like, we try to make ourselves as good of a Muslim as we can personally be, and a lot of the time it's almost like more wisdom makes us more afraid to say the wrong things to other people. But I was listening to a khutbah a while ago, and the Imam was saying essentially any Muslim who prays 5 times a day and does everything that he believes makes him a good believer, or is happy with their own level of iman, should be able to give da'wah. You don't have to be a scholar. You don't have to know the long history of Islam and memorize every hadith and be a hafid. Of course, those things are good, but as long as you follow the 5 pillars of Islam and the 6 pillars of iman, and you truly understand what makes Islam beautiful and different, you should be able to be a representative of that to anyone who's non-Muslim. We should all actually try to give da'wah.
100%.
This is beautiful because this is leading into our second talking point for today.
It is, subhanallah. There's
So Ibrahim, if you want to present it to us.
Sure, yeah. I mean, this topic is credentialism. Basically, I grew up thinking that you kind of have to be you have to be certified to speak about something before you should have a platform or a voice. That's just the way that I think I was raised, and my personal belief was such. Like, you have to have a degree in something to be taken seriously. And I don't know if that's true or not, But I think that what the internet age and the podcast age and all these things have kind of shown us is everyone is entitled to an opinion, even if it's a bad opinion, even if they don't know about things. Like, people will still be taken seriously as if they do know about these things. And so it kind of does lead into da'wah, because you don't have to have a stamp of approval from a mufti or something saying that you can go out and give da'wah.
No, 100%.
Yeah. You need to judge yourself, and of course you will be judged before Allah. If you're giving out false information with absolute surety and you're just doing everything wrong, then that's bad.
Yeah.
And you need to be close with your community so that they can tell you that you're on the wrong path.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't make you stray away or afraid to talk about things, even like a podcast like this.
Yeah.
We shouldn't feel like we have to have scholarly, like we have to be scholars to talk about these things, because that stops conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And also, like, just even from like a logical point of view, right? Like, think about it like this: as a Muslim, we believe that guidance does not come from us. Guidance comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if you come in with that preface into a conversation when you're giving da'wah, you understand, as long as you have the right intention, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of the rest.
Yes.
It's not about what you say. It's not about how you do it. It's literally about the fact of doing it and having the right intention.
Yeah.
Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide that person.
Yeah. You're just being a conduit to Allah's guidance.
Exactly.
If it is written, for that person to be guided to Islam, they will be.
Yeah, 100%.
And
that's like an important aspect. Conduit is a good word for it. You're just being the channel. And that's how, like, sometimes that's literally life. Life is just about experiencing sometimes Allah's miracles through yourself.
Yeah.
You see something happen and then you come to the conclusion that it was not me that did it, was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
And that only reassures your faith.
Yeah.
So that's a really important thing I think the most important thing when it comes to da'wah is, if you can give a word, that's better. That's good. But if you give the Quran, that's better.
Yeah.
If you can give the Quran, Allah's book is the perfect book. There's no introduction needed for it. I always thought that you needed to give it an introduction. Well, you have to think about, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it its introduction in Fatiha.
Yeah.
So, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave his own book. Who are we to think that we can give it a better introduction?
Yeah.
So I do think, and I think that was like a big thing that I fell into for a long time too, was that I was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Now, it's important that, like, if you realize you messed up, I'm just of the opinion, I realize if you're in a conversation and, like, you just get that moment to, like, spend a little bit, just to think about what you said, and then you realize you said something wrong, I think it's important to go back and correct.
Of course.
Because what's important is the truth. And what's important is that you both share the truth so that we both of you guys can come to the same conclusion, right? So that's an important thing. And man, it's at the end of the day, you can't guide everybody. Allah is the one that guides. I believe even the Prophet ﷺ's uncle, Abu Talib, he was on his deathbed, and the Prophet ﷺ was not able to. I know we say this a lot. I know it must have been so hard for him too. Yeah. Like, you have to realize that that's his uncle that loved him. All the brothers, I believe all his sons, would come and eat from the same plate. And Abu Talib would save the Prophet ﷺ a special space and a special plate right next to him. And this is where Muhammad ﷺ was going to eat from. And so he protected him, he defended him, even through, like, all the times that Quraysh was persecuting him. Even Abu Talib was like, at a time, he was like, can we please, like, let this go? You're causing me a lot of trouble. Prophet ﷺ was hurt. He didn't want to cause any pain to somebody, especially his uncle. And so he told him, I can't, though. This is for Islam, it's different, Even at that point, he wasn't able to, have Abu Talib take his shahada. Yeah. So... that's another interesting aspect.
And that's another interesting topic. I think that there are a lot of Muslim people who I speak with who believe that only the Muslims will be rewarded with Jannah on the Day of Judgment. And I don't know that we can actually make that judgment, because we're not the judge of things. Allah is. And so whether Abu Talib did not convert to Islam, he stayed a non-believer until he died, we don't know what's going to happen to him. We know that the Prophet ﷺ made dua for him to be given Jannah even after he died.
Really?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, from what I've heard, you're not. I think shirk is the only thing that's not forgivable. Shirk is from what I know, correct. Shirk is the only thing that's not forgivable.
I might have overstepped there.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, bro, we all make, like, it's, like, completely fine. I think that this is an important thing that we need to sometimes we have perceptions. It's important to clear them out.
You know how there's proof for that in Islam about how shirk is not accepted?
Yeah.
The story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun. Fir'aun, when the Red Sea was split, he was chasing after Prophet Musa and the Red Sea collapsed.
Yeah.
He said the shahada, or he said, okay, I believe.
He believes now. He said that.
I believe now.
Yeah, he said that.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not accept his repentance.
I will say though,
but that's a little bit different because that's right before death.
Yeah.
But the idea that I'm trying to say is shirk. That's an example of where also shirk.
But you're talking about how it says it in the Quran.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the Quran, when he talks about Fir'aun, it's said that Fir'aun, Allah said now, or no, it's not said who, but it says now you believe. That's what he said, but it's not specified anything after that. So it's just like a question that's brought up, like now you believe, but no, there's.
But it's about dying while you're doing shirk.
While you're doing dying as a disbeliever, but you found something, sorry?
Okay, well, maybe I worded this a little bit wrong, but the Prophet ﷺ prayed for Allah to forgive his uncle and prayed Allah to have mercy upon him even after he died.
Yeah. Okay.
Not necessarily that he would be given Jannah, but that he would be given mercy and forgiven. Even at the funeral. By Allah, I will pray Allah to forgive you, and I will intercede for you that the mankind and the jinn will be surprised.
Sorry, gonna say something?
Sure. Yeah, we can clip this a little bit.
We
don't have to release the whole thing uncut. Maybe we can just delete like this kind of period of time. You know what I mean?
Apparently, Islam Makhachev had a staph infection.
Really?
Yesterday, and he still beat Dustin Poirier in 5 rounds.
Who had a what infection?
Islam Makhachev had a staph infection.
Staph?
It's like a bacterial infection, I think.
Oh.
Usually, a lot of people who do MMA or any combat sport, it's usually from not taking care of your hygiene training, which makes sense if you're training like 5 times a day, 3 times a day.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But he looked slower yesterday.
Oh really?
I was comparing him in that fight to other fights. I was like, bro, he looks slower, a little bit sluggish.
Was it a good fight?
Every single fight on that card was like bad.
Yeah.
And then that fight was good.
Oh.
That went to 5 rounds, and he pulled off like a miracle takedown where like he ankle picked him.
Yeah.
And then like threw him across, took his back, hit the guillotine, and then changed it into a Darce choke.
Oh.
And the submission was so tight when he tapped, Dustin tapped, that like he went to sleep.
Wow.
Did he wake up?
He did, like 2 seconds later.
I was so confused about like submissions. Like when you choke him out, don't they die?
No, it's for like a sec. Like for example, if you let go, if you keep doing, obviously they're gonna die. Right?
Oh, okay.
But let's say he taps, but you don't let go of the submission that fast.
Yeah.
They'll go to sleep for a little bit.
That's
but
scary.
then they'll cut. Like that happened to my brother.
Oh, okay.
Like my brother, and they weren't even rolling. They were drilling, and he just didn't tap while drilling.
Yeah.
And he passed out for like 2 seconds. And
Oh wow.
pulled back up.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
But anyway, yeah. Back to what we were talking about. Block topic.
What other topics do we have?
So, I want to talk about the 3-phase plan for peace in the Middle East by Joe Biden. Have y'all seen that?
Yeah. He's been talking about that.
He was like, we have spoken to our Israeli counterparts and they are on page. And then the next day was Sabbath, so they couldn't check the news. And then on Sunday, because it's the right wing that's actually has a problem, and they very much follow the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
So they were not checking the news.
Yeah.
Sunday, Benjamin Netanyahu was basically like saying statements that was like,
yeah, I think I saw there was a defense minister or someone who said basically the opposite. He
Yeah.
was saying that we're going to continue this until Hamas is gone.
yeah, that's what they want. Exactly. And the United States didn't give them that in that deal.
Yeah, and it seems like Joe Biden, at least on his Twitter,
Yeah.
still thinks that they're willing to take some kind of agreement with Hamas.
And you know, it's so funny. So, Joe Biden tweeted this. Inshallah, the war ends. I don't care how it ends. Inshallah ends. That's like the goal, right? But it's so interesting that Joe Biden tweets this saying that Israel's already now it's in Hamas's hand. Hamas goes like, bro, we've been waiting. Like we'll give you all the hostages. We just want the war to end. We need a ceasefire.
Essentially, their terms have been a ceasefire with hostage negotiation, but don't completely destroy us and completely destroy Gaza.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Israel's like, no, we need all of Gaza. We need all of Hamas gone.
Yeah.
So I think it's just really interesting. I'm not commenting on anything except for the fact that like the United States obviously did not talk to Israel before sending this. What they did do, analysts are saying that what they did do was that to use leverage of public pressure against them, they basically made the statement public so that it's in the hands of Israel in front of the world.
Yeah.
Not in behind closed doors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's basically what analysts have been saying, that's kind of the situation that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Because there was two remarks made by Benjamin Netanyahu over the weekend, and then I think one more person from his cabinet that said something very similar. So it's interesting stuff. Inshallah it ends, but it's been going on for a while, man. It's been going for a long time, since October.
8 months.
Yeah,
I believe
it's been too long. And then the whole attack that happened in Rafah, that was twice the burning at the camp, and then I think that's what we were saying earlier. That was like kind of like the turning point for a lot. There should have been a turning point a long time ago, but in terms of just like Piers Morgan being like, oh man, like like Rafah was like the red. Israel wasn't Rafah. Oh, the Rafah was the United States' own red line, and then they crossed it twice.
Yeah, I mean they're actively crossing it.
Actively, and the way they did it too.
Horrible. Yeah.
It was terrible, man.
Yeah, and Joe Biden is in a really weird spot because this is an election year.
Yeah.
It's a question of which group he wants to betray, which group he's going to betray, because they have different weights in terms of their voting bloc.
Yeah.
Are you going to go with your own people, the progressives,
that
are part of the Democratic Party, who are very much for a ceasefire and against your support of Israel? Or are you going to go the way of the Israel lobby, because you need their money, you need their marketing for the presidential election?
Yeah.
Because otherwise they just go to the opposite. And Trump has been so pro-Israel in his rhetoric in the last few months that, it almost seems like Joe Biden, what, is he going to be as pro-Israel as Trump, or is he going to go fully the other side?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. And Trump's already going through his own thing.
Yeah.
He got charged with all 34 accounts. And he got charged with a fine, I believe, a fine that was more than normal for that kind of crime.
Yeah.
And so people were saying, like, this is basically punishment. Like, they're punishing him, in a way. But he was guilty of all 34. I think he's appealing it or something. But he has his sentence date in July. So it's going to be an interesting thing that boils down with that.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that people are actually going to have changed their vote because of that, because of how the court hearing was.
They're going to vote for Trump?
It's going to split people. Like, people are now going to be against him because they found him guilty. But I found that so interesting because, like, do people really put that much weight on what judges have to say? Like, does our judicial system really serve justice?
Well, people really do go with what the court says, I think. I think in general, in America, like, a lot of people trust that is the most objective form of what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, figuring that out. And so, having the conviction actually it makes a difference to, I think, people who were on the fence, maybe people who were voted Republican for a long time. Yeah. But who, were kind of so-so on Trump. Yeah. Maybe now they're like, okay, this guy is, like, legitimately a criminal. Yeah. But, if you're a big Trump supporter, if you own a red hat or have a flag on your truck,
it doesn't matter.
This isn't changing a thing. This is making your views about the establishment solidified. Even further.
That's true. True. Yeah.
And then if you're on the left, like, okay, like, this doesn't change your notions of Trump at all. Yeah. I mean, the what he was convicted of is like some kind of
hush money, basically.
Well, the hush money is, I think, fine. That's not what it's about. It's about the fact that he lied, or the Trump organization lied about using campaign funds for the hush money or something like that. He's guilty of that. He's not guilty of the crime of paying off a person to not talk about something.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, no, it's the technicality of a technicality.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and this is something that came out in like 2016. Why are you
Yeah.
persecuting it now,
Yeah.
months before the election?
And it doesn't change his situation for presidency, right? Like he can still be a president and have the thing on his.
So I think it depends on what his punishment is, because
No, even if it's still jail time.
Oh really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's double check that. But yeah, I read it somewhere that basically no matter what the verdict of this court case is, man, like he's basically gonna be off the hook. As long as his presidency goes through. Can Trump be president?
President in jail. He can still run for president.
Yeah, he can still run for president.
Sure.
So yeah. So man, it's
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to look at this, but
I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Something I found out recently is that the United States Supreme Court building, which was built possibly in the 1930s, it was built a long time ago, has depictions of a lot of people from history who were lawmakers who, it's like aggrandizing the courts.
Yeah.
And there are, I think, it's called a frieze or a frieze. There are sculptures of I don't know, like maybe Socrates or Plato or people like that. But there's also one on the line of all the people of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I recently found out that there's a sculpture of him with his face drawn and everything at the U.S. Supreme Court building.
Yeah.
And as an American Muslim, I kind of am mixed on how I should feel about this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's really interesting. It almost feels like a betrayal of respective religion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no way that they didn't know.
Yeah.
And in Islam, we're not even allowed to depict the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're not allowed to like draw him or anything like that, because that that can cause problems too. But for the Supreme Court to be able to put it on, that's kind of blew my mind, and I don't even want to see.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna try to find ones that don't have it. Oh, they blurted his face out. Nice.
Okay, but it's I don't know.
Yeah. It appears it was built in the 1960s. I mean.
1960s?
Or sorry, 1930s.
30s.
Yeah, frieze in the 1930s building. It lists the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as one of the 18 greatest lawgivers in the history of humanity.
The 18 of what?
One of the 18 greatest lawgivers. And so there are 18 people who are drawn here.
Yeah.
And of them is Muhammad. It also includes Hammurabi, Confucius, Prophet Musa, another prophet.
Oh wow, they have Prophet Musa.
Interesting.
There too.
By American sculptor Adolf Weinman. It's an interesting name. It shows the Prophet holding the Quran in one hand and a sword in the other one, while standing between Byzantine Emperor Justinian and Carolingian Charlemagne. Since its installation in 1935, the piece of marble depicting the Prophet has been standing there in honor of lawgivers. And so, yeah, Islamically, this is absolutely wrong to do that. And there have been people who have argued that this should be taken down, but it hasn't. This is an example of American expression, free expression, right? But we should be offended by this. I mean, this should remind us that while we are American Muslims, we're Muslims. We're not Muslim Americans.
Yeah.
We're primarily Muslims. American is the adjective here. Like we follow the laws of this land. We love being here. We love the people and the language and the culture. But there are things that don't entirely mesh with us. We have to understand that our North Pole or our North Star is Islam, and it always has to be. So this is wrong.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't know, it's kind of blows my mind. Freedom of expression, right? Like that's such a subjective word nowadays too, with everything that's kind of going around.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is very subjective. No one can really say that there is necessarily freedom of speech, because now we're having infringement on the freedom of speech.
Yeah, I mean, so there's no such thing as true freedom of speech. You can't say anything. You can't. And this is the example that's given a lot of the time. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater or something like that.
Yeah,
it's actually illegal.
Yeah.
There are things that are incite violence and things like that. So there are limits, and so it's a question when it comes to drawing Muhammad. It's it's a question of where the limit is there, you know, because sure, yeah, people have a freedom to express themselves. If they want to draw him, they can, whatever. But that does incite people to be violent, and it is inflammatory. It's, you know, those are fighting words in a way, you know. And I think that the law or the government or someone like Americans should understand that.
No, for sure,
you know?
For sure. And I've just out of respect, you know,
out of respect
for another, like, I'm assuming, like, if we assume the best of intentions, the person or whoever decided to do it did not want to do it out of, like, you know, pissing anybody off or making anyone upset.
Yeah, and this one, there's no way, like, it seems like the intention was actually to show respect to Islam in a way.
But that's not the way to go about it.
But that's not the way to go about it.
Like,
consult us for that.
Exactly. You know, I feel like they didn't consult anybody before putting, you know, pictures of anybody up like that.
Yeah.
What is this?
So I just pulled up, this is kind of interesting. For a very long period of time, non-Muslims, especially Americans and Westerners, didn't call Muslims Muslims. They called them Mohammedans. That was the term.
Wow.
Yeah. There's even some there are even some writings in like early government documents and things like that refers to Mohammedans.
Wow.
Because they didn't really understand our religion, and it actually is an offensive term now to us.
Yeah.
Because our religion is Islam. Islam is submission to Allah.
Yeah.
We're not worshipping Muhammad.
Yeah.
Like, Muhammadan is almost like their equivalent for us of the word Christian, right?
Yeah.
Because they're worshipping Christ.
Yeah.
They're not it's not like a Bible God and Bible God believer. No, it's Christian, and so they just don't like the people who use this word didn't understand Islam, and it's interesting that it's gone away, but
yeah, I think it's slow education, especially with more and more Muslims living in the West.
Yeah,
like these things are kind of becoming more and more open. This kind of reminds me of the whole the attempt of the anti-Islamophobia thing that Kamala Harris and Biden tried pushing.
Anti-Islamophobia?
Yeah, anti-Islamophobia.
Okay.
Did you see that campaign?
I don't think I did.
Oh, so basically as a far reach during the whole genocide that's happening, they tried pushing out an anti-Islamophobia campaign in the middle just to like get the Muslim votes to come back. This was like right before or right after the whole polling that they did in the swing states.
Oh, yeah.
No one was biting that, bro. Still, I think there was 100,000 undecided votes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So it was definitely
that's not gonna get you.
Like trying to throw us a bone.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting because that kind of surface level rhetoric that the Democratic Party has thrown out of like, oh, we support everyone, including Muslims.
Yeah.
And look how bad the Republicans are for the Muslims. Like Muslim ban, things like that.
Yeah.
But there's no meat to it. It's not real. It's just talk. And I think before October 7th, the Muslim community in America was much more willing to go with it. I think the rhetoric mattered. Like people saying we should not be Islamophobic, or just saying like, oh, we support our Muslim people and we have Ramadan iftar at the White House every year, whatever. That worked on a lot of people.
Yeah.
And ever since October 7th, and ever since we realized that these people, their actions are not their words.
Yeah, 100%.
It's really changing. And I would love to see the demographics for this upcoming election.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very different.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, you know. I don't know. You think we'll have a third party winner?
Well, you don't have to have a third party win like 50% or more to win the election.
Yeah, if you have 50%, you're good.
Yeah, of course. But I think even if a third party person got like 25-30%, like split the vote enough to where no one actually got above 50%.
Then what, runoff?
I think there would be either a runoff or there's some kind of situation, some kind of contingency that would actually change the calculus and make things a little bit of a shakeup. Who knows? I mean, who are you voting for, Adam?
I can't say.
You can't say?
I'm keeping it a secret. It's going to be very tough.
That's between you, God, and the state?
You, God, and the state.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's tough. It's been very tough. Everyone's already talking about that kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't know, man. Yeah. I don't know.
It really has been tough.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I don't know. I don't want to say anything.
Ibrahim, who are you voting for?
Oh, Who's the Green Party nominee?
If y'all know who the Green Party, like some of the candidates, not for Green Party, but like just and others.
Yes, there's a lady who's actually pro-Palestine.
Jill
Stein?
Jill Stein,
Jill Stein, yeah.
She got arrested. You know that?
Yes, at the protest.
Yeah,
right?
she did.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, personally, if we want to get deep into it, I was starting to really like RFK Jr. He went on all kinds of podcasts. He seemed to really be gunning for like the young people vote, and I really liked the things he was saying. I felt like he really had a good view of everything that's going on in this country, and I think he probably would be a good leader of this country in a way.
How old is he?
He's like probably mid to late 60s. He's still pretty old, but he's not anywhere near as old as Trump or Biden.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have to at least be like 70 plus to like be candidate, bro.
Apparently,
that's like an unwritten rule.
Unwritten rule, yeah. But once October 7th happened, I mean, he's another example of someone who just went so far to Israel's side.
Really?
Yeah, that I just cannot, in good conscience, think anything positive of him.
Oh.
Even if I think as a president of America he would be good for this country.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that the way that he treats my own people, our people, the Muslims, matters. Yeah. And so if he feels so negatively towards the Palestinians, then he doesn't have my vote. And I think all the young people who he got at the beginning are gone.
Is he still running?
He's still running.
Oh.
He's actually going to be on the ballot.
Oh, wow.
I believe, yeah.
What's he represent? What party is he represent? Independent?
Independent.
Okay.
Yeah, he was trying to run as a Democrat at the beginning, actually, and then the Biden establishment sort of made it illegal for him to run, or made it very, very difficult to the point where it was pointless for him to run as a Democrat, and so he just went independent. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm probably just not gonna vote. Yeah. It's sad.
Oh my God, guys, this is 2 hours ago. The Maldives, which is a Muslim country,
south of Sri Lanka,
passed a
right?
ban against Israeli citizens, and they will not be allowed to visit.
Oh, wow.
This is 2 hours ago, and Twitter's been going crazy about this. I think. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just.
Oh, wait, is Maldives a Muslim country?
I believe it is. Yeah.
It is. Yes.
Yeah, and I would say like the anti-Israel sentiment across the world it's deep now.
It's interesting because as Americans we don't see it very much.
Yeah.
Like unless you're on social media a lot because it's kind of global, but America's pro-Israel, of course it is.
Yeah.
But almost every other country is anti
Yeah.
or pro-Palestine in this situation.
And the Netanyahu government did it to themselves. It wasn't like this before October 7th.
Yeah, there was a lot of sympathy for the Jews.
Yeah, and then after Netanyahu dug his own grave for him and his people.
Yeah.
So now it's like these things are coming out. People are recognizing the state of Palestine. Norway did, Spain did, and I believe Ireland did.
Yeah.
They all recognized on May 28th the state of Palestine.
Yeah.
And there's one African country that's going to send a consulate there or open up embassy there.
Really?
Yeah.
Is France as well?
I believe France. Well, I think France voted for recognizing Palestine as a member of the UN General Assembly, something like that.
Yeah, France did. They voted yes in that resolution. Yeah. So they're I don't know, coming around, I guess.
Yeah.
But they were hardcore Israeli supporters at the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. I think that's what the two topics we wanted to cover this podcast. Alhamdulillah that we were able to, and then inshallah we covered everything. Do you have any closing remarks? Anything that in the last 2 weeks that you were like, man, this has like been a lesson that I've learned these last 2 weeks? You were a traveler these last 2 weeks too. I feel like traveling teaches you a lot.
Traveling, yeah. I mean, I learned a lot from my Houston trip. One, that Houston's weather is absolutely horrible, that I hate it.
Why?
It's like
humid?
Here, wherever here is.
Yeah.
It's like here, but way more humid, and so it just feels so much hotter, and you're so sweaty. It's not nice.
Okay.
I'm just not for Houston.
I was hoping for something like philosophical.
Something philosophical.
And you were like, Houston weather sucks. No, that's good though.
No, I mean, to be broad about this, because I don't want to get very specific about what happened.
Yeah.
But, we're all representatives of Islam as Muslims, and we're representatives of our own etiquette, I guess. Like, people judge us based on our actions, even at our worst times.
Yeah.
And so we should always do right by everyone, even if they're not doing right by us.
100%.
And, you know,
and that,
whenever...
Sorry to cut you, but that's even deeper than how it just sounds. Like, it's really hard to do that in the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to do that when there are emotions and when there's a lot going on, but you always have to remember, look, this is Qadr Allah. This is something that's out of my hands. It's written, and it's literally Allah's plan. All I can do is be the best representative of Islam as I can.
Yes.
Be the best person I can be, even if I have to suffer a little bit. Maybe my pride or something can't allow whatever, but it's like, look, pride isn't going to get you into Jannah.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
And like, pride's not gonna get, even if a man has a mustard seed of arrogance, he will not enter Jannah.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the hadith that we started out with, right? Like, whatever Allah has willed for us, it will happen.
Yeah.
You should not get into the what ifs.
Yeah.
If only. This is like the work of shaitan. We need to focus on what is, not what was or could have been. What is and
what we can do.
Exactly. And keep stepping forward, trusting in Allah's plan, trusting that He knows best for us, even if we don't see the time in the moment. And I think that's right on spot, kind of the things that I've been trying to learn these last couple weeks too. Is that for me, I'm just trying to become more in tune with just the qadr that's written for me, and becoming more grateful for the moment, for it is a present, and not dwelling on the past or wishing for some future. So that's definitely, I think that, and like I said, this is easier said in talking about it, but experience and life is like such an interesting way of learning, you know. So it's only when you go through the moment that you're like, you remember this, and then you're like, this is so hard right now, but I guess, you know, I'm gonna stick it through, inshallah. So, but yeah, I do, alhamdulillah, may Allah and forgive us for our sins and our mistakes. Let's just end with a dua real quick.
After the dua, let's also give our viewers a schedule of when they can expect the podcast.
Inshallah. Sounds good. Okay. Ya Rabb as-samawati wal-ard, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, Ya Rahman ad-dunya wal-akhirah. O Allah, please send salawat and salam upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya Allah, forgive us for our sins, our mistakes, our shortcomings in this, Ya Allah. Forgive us, Ya Allah, forgive us. I ask you, Ya Allah, that we come to this podcast every single time with the best of intentions, wishing to please you and you alone. Whatever the intention is written for us in our hearts, Ya Allah, even if it's different, let it only be for you. O Allah, and if we turn away during the middle, and our intention skews because of our own nafs or shaitan, then turn us back to you, Ya Allah, and make us firm on your path. O Allah, please, I ask you that you forgive us for any thoughts that come up inside of us that are displeasing to you, that make you upset, or that we hate and we despise. Ya Allah, save us from the evilness of our nafs and from the waswa of shaitan. Ameen. Ya Allah, please increase us in knowledge in this. Ya Allah, allow this to be a form of dawah, and allow us to increase our knowledge through this. Rabbi zidni ilma, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So in terms of schedule, I think we're trying to do Sundays every day in the mornings. So it'd be like hour, 2 hours. I think Rayhan has an idea. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say no. He had an idea of doing a live stream. We might do a live stream too, inshallah. And I hope you guys like the setup. Comment down below if you like the setup. No, so yeah, so inshallah we might do a live stream. We'll start putting them on YouTube, the second one and then this one too.
Yeah.
And then we might start live streaming them on Sundays in the morning.
But from now on, expect the full podcast to be up on YouTube by Sunday.
Yeah, inshallah. Inshallah. Sounds good. But yes, Sadaqallah al-Azim. All right.